For reasons like tone, game flow, and accessibilities, some DMs choose to streamline the spellcasting system, making mages feel more like superheroes throwing around multicolored generic energy blasts. But if you're willing to dive into the true power of an often overlooked element of spellcasting, namely material components, you'll find a wealth of in-game bonuses and role-playing opportunities. But before we unravel these arcane mysteries, if you'd like to take your game further, join the D6 Damage Discord. We have fantastic discussions about all aspects of Pathfinder 1E, strategy guides, character builds, and much, much more. You'll find a link in the description of this video. Now then, let's begin this look at the power of material components by examining what material components actually are. Every spell has needed components. These are the things you have to have or do in order to cast a spell. There are verbal components. These are the words you say, the alakazams, the hocus pocus. Then there's somatic components. These are full bodies, gestures. These are the arcane symbols you trace in the air with your hands, the operatic hand movements, and even your dab for fireball. But there are also material components. These are the items you must have to cast a spell. As an example, Summon Monster needs a tiny bag and a small candle. That's probably why it takes a full round action to cast. Animate Dead uses an onyx gem worth 25 gold pieces per HD of undead created. And Tiny Hut requires a small crystal bell. These items can be very unique, thematic, and cool, and I would highly recommend describing how your character uses them when casting a spell just for that added flavor. I also recommend that prepared casters, like wizards and clerics, pick up a spell component pouch. Once you have this, you are assumed to have the components that you need, and it will cost you a mere 5 gold. That's right, the Eschew Materials feat will only save you 5 gold. Finally, material components are different from foci, as material components are sacrificed in the casting of a spell, whereas a focus can be used over and over again. Now that you know how to find the material components that are inherently associated with your spell, let's talk about the extras that you can employ to give your magic a boost. Starting with alchemical power components. These Eye of Newt, Tongue of Frog style reagents are in contrast to the alchemist trope of the fantasy scientist. These are much more supernatural and occult, getting into the symbolic Renaissance magic aspects of the casting system. Alchemical power components augment the effect of spells. However, only 1 dose of an alchemical power component can be used per spell. There are many of them, but here are my picks for the best alchemical power components and how to use them to their best potential. Starting with Brain Mold Spores. Spells of the Charm or Compulsion subschools are 1 caster level higher for the purpose of duration. So, spells with durations of minutes, hours, or days are greatly helped by this power component. You get an extra hour of Charm Person, or an additional day of Dominate Person. Next, Magnesium. Spells of the Transmutation School are treated as 1 caster level higher when determining duration. This is great for getting more time out of longer lasting spells. Another hour of Dark Vision or 2 more hours of Water Breathing are just a couple of great uses for Magnesium. Next, Moon Dew. Divination spells are 1 caster level higher for all effects. Obviously, increasing the duration of an effect like Arcane Sight is great, but you can also increase your odds of overcoming spell resistance with an effect like Scrying. An interesting option is Black Powder. Spells of the Evocation School deal an extra 1 point of damage if they deal energy damage. This is great for spells like Scorching Ray. It's also helpful on persistent effects like Wall of Fire or Aggressive Thundercloud. Next, Salt. Necromancy spells are treated as one caster level higher for all effects. This is good for extending the duration of False Life by an hour, increasing the ability to overcome SR for spells like Poison, and every odd level you can get an extra D6 out of Vampiric Touch. Combine this with Mage's Tattoo Necromancy and the Spell Specialization feat, and you can treat Vampiric Touch as 4 caster levels higher, getting you an extra 2d6 of damage. Finally, there's Spirit of Wine. This lets you treat spells of the Summoning School as 1 caster level higher for duration. This is extremely useful early game, because it lets you keep your summons around for 1 round longer. Now, let's move on to a class of even more powerful material components. Esoteric material components. There are multiple ways for a DM to use this system. It can be an add-on to an existing spellcasting system, or a mandatory component that greatly increases the cost of spellcasting for low magic settings. In this video, I'll be examining esoteric materials as an extension of a normal spellcasting system. There are 4 types of esoteric material components. Each is associated with 2 schools of magic. However, despite this association, esoteric materials can be used to enhance spells of any school, and they can even be used in combination with each other. However, for esoteric materials not matching up with the school of the spell to be cast, the component cost is doubled. Now, if you know what you're doing, you can use esoteric materials to manifest a greater component effect. When used as part of a mandatory spellcasting system, esoteric materials have a gold cost of 1 GP times caster level times spell level. You have to pay this in order to cast the spells that you want to cast. However, if you spend double the component cost, you manifest a greater component effect. Now, if you want to manifest this effect, you can only use a single type of component. It doesn't need to be connected to the school that you're using, but you do need to use all of that component. So, if you're using a type of esoteric material component that is not associated with the school that you are trying to use, and you want to manifest the greater component effect, you need to spend 4 times the gold cost associated with that spell. Now that you understand greater component effects, let's look at the 4 types of esoteric materials and the effects that they can manifest. First up, entropic resin. This is associated with evocation and necromancy. Entropic resin's greater component effect will add +1 to the caster level when determining the damage dice of an evocation or necromancy spell. This can even increase the maximum number of damage dice by 1. As an example, you can get an 11d6 fireball. Next, geodes. Geodes are associated with abjuration and transmutation. The greater component effect of geodes is a +2 caster level bonus when determining the duration of effects. Next up, verdant salts. Verdant salts are associated with divination and enchantment. When manifested, the greater component effect of verdant salts increases the DC of saves by 1. Finally, there's prismatic sand. Prismatic sand is associated with conjuration and illusion. The greater component effect of prismatic sand is a +4 caster level bonus when determining the range of spells. Also, you can increase or decrease the area of effect of a spell with a burst by 5 feet. When you cast a spell, you can attempt to apply an additional greater component effect. You can even add multiple additional greater component effects. You do this by, of course, spending the gold cost in valuable material components. However, you'll also need to attempt a spellcraft check. DC 20 plus double the spell level plus 5 plus the spell level for each effect beyond the second. If you fail this check by 5 or more, the spell slot is expended and the material is wasted. Now, before we move on, there exists an additional 5th esoteric material component, a very rare one, luster. If you're using luster as an esoteric material component, you can use only that material component. You can't mix it with other materials, like you can with the 4 others. The greater material component effect of luster increases the DC of spells by 1 and increases the caster level by 2, and this can increase the number of damage dice, even above and beyond the normal cap. So that's how you get a 12d6 of damage fireball. Finally, luster's cost is always 200 gold pieces per spell level. Now, if all those bonuses weren't enough, you can further specialize with esoteric feats. These feats allow you to get even more powerful effects out of your esoteric material components. First up, Esoteric Abjuration. If geodes are used as a component when casting a spell, the target gets a +1 bonus to either fort, reflex, or will saves. Also, if the greater component effect is manifested, you treat your caster level as an additional 1 higher. So that's +3 to your caster level when determining the duration of abjuration spells. There is a caveat to that though. The duration must be in rounds or minutes. So, protection from evil is good, mage armor is not. Next, Esoteric Conjuration. If prismatic sand was used in summoning, calling, or moving a creature from another plane, that creature, only one if you summoned multiples, has a 20% mischance on attacks made against it, and attacks without a mischance, like Fireball, deal 20% less damage. This effect lasts for 1 round. If the greater component effect was manifested, treat your caster level as 2 higher when determining range, for a total of a +6 to your caster level bonus for range. Next, Esoteric Divination. If verdant salts were used as an esoteric material component, you get one of the following benefits. You increase the likelihood of a percentage-based divination spell being effective. As an example, you would have a -5 penalty to the D100 roll you make when attempting to contact another plane. Or you would get a +2 competency bonus to perception checks when attempting to perceive through a divination spell like scrying. Finally, you could ask an additional question with spells like Speak with Dead or Contact Other Planes. Also, if you manifest the greater component effect, you increase the DC of your divination spells by an additional 1. Next, Esoteric Enchantment. If verdant salts were used as an esoteric material component, a creature that fails its save against your enchantment takes a -2 penalty to your choice of ability checks, attack rolls, damage rolls, saves, or skill checks for 1 round. This is in addition to the spell's normal effect. Also, if the greater component effect is manifested, you increase the spell save DC by 1 for a total of +2. Next, Esoteric Evocation. If entropic resin was used as a component, you deal 1 point of damage per 2 caster levels, maximum of 10, points of damage of the energy type associated with your spell, to an adjacent creature. Also, if the greater component effect was manifested, treat your caster level as an additional 1 higher for damage dice and extra damage. Again, that's a 12d6 fireball. Next, Esoteric Necromancy. If entropic resin was used as an esoteric material component, and the target of your spell fails its save, The target is shaken in addition to the normal spell effect. Also, if the greater component effect was manifested, you treat your caster level as 1 higher for determining the damage dice and bonus damage of the spell. Next, Esoteric Transmutation. If geodes are used as an esoteric material component, you, not the target of your spell, get a +2 bonus on attack rolls, ability checks, or skill checks based on either strength, dexterity, or constitution. You pick what stat gets this bonus when you cast the spell. The effect lasts until the end of your turn. Also, if the greater component effect was manifested, treat your caster level as 1 higher for determining the duration of your transmutation spells. This is a total of +3 to your caster level. The final feat I would like to go over is Unstoppable Esoterra. With this feat, you get a +2 to concentration checks and a +2 to caster level checks against dispel attempts when using esoteric material components. Now, I'd like to leave you with a little inspiration for material components at your next Pathfinder 1E game. Starting with the Sorcerers of Conan the Barbarian. Robert E. Howard's sword-swinging wild man has been a huge inspiration to all kinds of tabletop games. And the Sorcerers of the Hyborian Age are a sinister lot. They typically serve as villains or dubious allies for Conan to tackle. And one of the items any sorcerer worth his salt tends to have around is the mysterious Black Lotus power, which increases the potency of their sorceries. Coming from one of my favorite locations in the Hyborian Age, the mysterious land of Stygia, this powder is a must-have for any servant of Set. Next up, the Dresden Files. Wizard detective Harry Dresden always has a trick or two up his sleeve in the form of one-time use magic items. Or when back at his apartment/lab, Harry has all kinds of unusual items to assist with potion making or magical workings. The Dresden Files are great fantasy noir books, and I would highly recommend them. Finally, if you're interested in the grimdark future of Warhammer 40,000, you could check out The Thousand Suns. Both in the books of the Black Library and Tabletop, the Sorcerers of the 15th Legion use many different components, including human sacrifices, to empower their sorcery in their war against the Imperium of Man. Thank you very much for watching this D6 damage guide to the power of material components in Pathfinder 1E. Now, if you're interested in books, dice, or other tabletop gaming swag, check out Noble Knight Games. They're your one-stop shop for everything tabletop. You'll find a link in the description of this video. And if you're interested in a good old-fashioned haunted house adventure, check out Sorceress, the Dietrich House, available right now on DriveThruRPG.